There is a kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. I did not understand that until I was 71 years old, sitting in a dark kitchen at 4:30 in the morning, crushing a tablet into a teaspoon of applesauce because my wife could no longer swallow pills the way she used to, and realizing I could not remember if I had eaten dinner the night before. Not what I had eaten, whether I had eaten at all. That is what caregiving does, and nobody prepares you for it. You do not fall apart the way you expect to fall apart, all at once, dramatically, in a way people around you can see and respond to. You fall apart in the margins, in the half-seconds between tasks, in the growing list of ordinary things you stop doing because there is no room left for ordinary things. I had not called my own doctor in 6 months. I had not spoken to a friend who was not somehow connected to Marlene's care team. I had not watched a full hour of television without falling asleep in the recliner and waking up stiff and disoriented at 2 in the morning, then lying awake until it was time to start the medications again. My name is Edwin Pruitt. I am 71 years old. I spent 28 years as a systems engineer at the Tennessee Valley Authority, working out of the Knoxville Operations Center on Kingston Pike. Retired in 2019, clean record, full pension, and a 401k that I had contributed to every single paycheck since 1997. Every raise, every bonus, every year I chose the pre-owned car over the new one, the vacation we would take next time, the kitchen renovation that kept getting pushed. By the time my wife Marlene was diagnosed, that account held $285,000. I want you to understand what that number meant. It meant that if I died first, and at my age, in a marriage where my wife is younger than me and already sick, that is not an abstract fear. That is the last thought I have every night before I close my eyes. If I died first, she would still be okay. That was all it meant. That was all it was for. Not a boat, not a beach house, not any of the things men my age are supposed to spend retirement money on. Every dollar of it was for Marlene. The neurologist at UT Medical Center delivered the diagnosis on a gray Thursday morning in March. Stage 3 Parkinson's disease. He said the words slowly, and I understood later that he had learned to say them that way, one word at a time, with space between them, so the brain can keep up with the ears. Stage 3 means balance is compromised. It means the freezing episodes where she would stop mid-step as though her body had simply forgotten how to continue, and I would walk to her and put my hand on her shoulder and wait until she could start again. It means the tremor in her right hand that was present even when she slept. It means that the face I have loved for 41 years sometimes moves on its own schedule, expressing things she is not feeling or holding still through things she is. I drove home from that appointment and sat in the driveway for 20 minutes and did not go inside. I thought about the facility on Lions View Pike that I had been aware of for 2 years without ever letting myself look at directly. I thought about Marlene asleep in the passenger seat beside me, her right hand resting open in her lap. I thought, get her inside, get her settled, then figure out the rest. 3 weeks later, my daughter-in-law called. My son Craig had married her 9 years ago. She worked in property management over in West Knoxville, handled a portfolio of commercial rentals off Hardin Valley Road, the kind of work that trains a person to read documents fast and read people faster. She had always been organized in a way I had taken for efficient and had not looked at more carefully than that. She called me on a Tuesday evening and said the thing that I was already thinking, but had not been able to say out loud. Dad, you cannot manage Marlene's care and the household finances and everything else alone. You are going to run yourself into the ground, and then she won't have either of you. She was right. That is the part I keep turning over. She was medically, factually, absolutely right. I was already forgetting things I had never forgotten in my life. I had missed a payment on the homeowner's insurance for the first time in 26 years of owning that house. I was sleeping in 4-hour increments and calling that rest. She was right. So when she offered to take over the financial management, the bills, the investment accounts, the pension paperwork, the insurance appeals that Marlene's physical therapy kept generating, I said yes. She brought the power of attorney documents to the house on a Wednesday evening and set them on the kitchen table between us, and I signed them with heavy eyes and hands that had not been steady all week, and she had everything notarized the following morning before I finished my first cup of coffee. I slept better that night than I had in 2 months. I thought I had finally handed something heavy to someone strong enough to carry it. What I did not know was that the first withdrawal from my retirement account had been processed 48 hours before I signed a single page. She came to the house 4 times a week after that. She sat in on Marlene's appointments at the neurology clinic and took notes in a leather binder, remembered every name on the care team, asked the right follow-up questions. She handled the insurance denials, the prior authorizations, the prescription coordination. She ran grocery runs to the Kroger on Paper Mill Drive and picked up medications from the CVS on Kingston Pike and managed the quarterly statements that I had stopped reading because she had everything under control. She was everything she appeared to be, and for 22 months I thank God for her. I want you to hold that image, a 71-year-old man on his knees, genuinely grateful, alongside one fact I did not learn until much later. She was paying very close attention to every number she touched, and she had been making careful, quiet withdrawals since month 1. Let me tell you about Easter Sunday. My daughter Penny lives in Maryville, about 30 minutes south of Knoxville, with her husband Kurt. Kurt works in fraud compliance at a regional insurance firm with offices downtown on Gay Street. He is a quiet man, not shy, not cold, just economical with words in a way that some people mistake for having nothing to say. He does not correct that impression. I had eaten across from him at family dinners for 7 years and could not have told you, if you had asked me that morning, anything specific about the nature of his work beyond insurance, something with numbers. He had never offered more than that. I wish I had asked him earlier. Penny had made a full Easter spread, honey-glazed ham, deviled eggs, the green bean casserole with the crispy onions on top, and Marlene's sweet potato pie recipe that Penny had been carrying in her head since she was 16. Marlene was dressed in her lavender blouse, the one with the small pearl buttons she had always loved, and she was having a good day. Present, clear, laughing at things that were genuinely funny. Those days were gifts, and I had learned to receive them without looking too hard at what surrounded them. Craig was there, relaxed, refilling his own glass of sweet tea without offering anyone else's first, which had been a habit of his since adolescence. His wife sat beside him, holding Marlene's hand at one point across the table, asking her about her physical therapy progress with the particular warmth of someone performing care for an audience. Midway through the meal, Kurt excused himself to take a phone call. He was gone 3 minutes. When he came back, he sat down next to me instead of across from me, where he had been sitting before. I noticed. I said nothing. Under the tablecloth, he pressed his phone face up against my knee and held it there for 1 second. Then he picked up his fork. On the screen, a text he had sent to himself, typed while he was standing in the hallway. Dad, open your 401k balance right now. Don't let anyone see the phone, then tell them you're feeling dizzy and you need air. I looked at him. He was cutting his ham into careful squares. He did not look back at me. I opened my banking app under the table. I had not opened it in 4 months. She handled the finances. That was the arrangement. The number on the screen when it loaded was $14,211. I sat with that number for a moment. $285,000. 28 years. Every raise, every bonus, every vacation we would take next time. $14,211. Craig was in the middle of a story about a zoning appeal. Marlene was watching him with her head tilted the way she did when she was concentrating hard on following along. She looked peaceful. She looked like herself. I pressed my palm flat against my chest. I don't feel right, I said quietly. I think I need some air. Penny was on her feet before I finished the sentence. She has her mother's instinct for distress in other people. Kurt helped me outside, kept walking me to his truck in the driveway, got in and started it. He drove us into Knoxville, not to the hospital, to his office building on Gay Street. Easter Sunday, the building was empty, the elevator quiet in the particular way of office buildings on holidays, like a held breath. We sat in his office on the 4th floor. He closed the door. He looked at me with the expression of a man who has been waiting a long time for the right moment to open a door and has decided this is it. How long have you known? I asked. 6 weeks, he said. Why did you wait? He folded his hands on the desk. Because Penny needed to be completely certain before she watched me take her sister-in-law apart, and because I needed every piece of evidence in place before this conversation happened. He opened his laptop and walked me through it. 22 months of withdrawals, always between $4,000 and $8,000. Never the same amount twice. Never the same week of the month twice. The pattern had a name, structuring, and Kurt explained it to me precisely. Under federal law, banks are required to file a currency transaction report for any single transaction exceeding $10,000. Keeping withdrawals below that threshold to avoid triggering that report is a federal crime entirely separate from the fraud beneath it. She had been careful, patient. She had applied to stealing from me the kind of methodical discipline I had never once seen her apply to anything in the 9 years she had been part of this family. Then the pension. She had used the power of attorney I signed on that Wednesday night to contact my pension administrator at TVA directly. Proper legal letterhead, my signature on the original authorization, She had requested that 60% of my monthly pension distribution be redirected to a secondary account she controlled. The administrator processed it. Why would they question legitimate paperwork that looked exactly like legitimate paperwork? I looked at the wall behind his monitor and did the math and felt something arrive inside me that I do not have a clean word for. Not anger, not grief, something older than both of those and colder. He slid another document across the desk. She had opened a P.O. box on Magnolia Avenue and quietly changed the correspondence address on my investment account. I had received no statements for 14 months because she handled the finances. Then he paused. He reached for the last document on the stack and slid it across carefully, the way you save the heaviest thing for when someone has had a moment to brace. It was a beneficiary designation change form on my 401. My signature was on it. I recognized the date immediately, a Tuesday morning in month 7. Marlene had been up most of the night before with leg cramping, a Parkinson symptom that people do not talk about as much as the tremor, but that wakes her some nights and keeps her awake for hours. I had been up with her until past 2 in the morning. My daughter-in-law had arrived at 8 with coffee and a folder and said casually, "The way you say something you have rehearsed until it sounds unrehearsed? Just a couple of routine account forms, Dad. I've handled everything else. Just need you here and here." I had signed without reading. Among those pages was a form removing Penny from my retirement account beneficiaries entirely, substituting my daughter-in-law's name in her place. My own hand, my own pen, my daughter removed from everything I had built because I trusted someone and I was too exhausted to read what I was signing. I put both hands flat on Kurt's desk and looked at them. Just my hands, an old man's hands. Hands that had worked 28 years for the Tennessee Valley Authority and signed a document on a tired Tuesday morning and apparently had not done enough. "There is one more thing," Kurt said. He said it in a tone that prepared me before the words did. For the past several months, she'd been making quiet, careful observations to extended family members. At Craig's cousin's cookout in the fall, after church in January, comments like, "I'm so worried about Edwin. He's really struggling. I've had to step in with the finances more than most people outside the household realize." The elder law attorney Kurt had consulted privately recognized the pattern immediately. She was laying groundwork for a guardianship petition. If she could persuade a court that I was financially incompetent, and she had been building that social record patiently, one comment at a time, she would become my legal guardian. Everything she was doing illegally would have become court-sanctioned. Everything I still owned would have passed to her legal control. She was not just stealing from me. She was constructing a legal enclosure around me, and she had been building it quietly while I thanked God for her. I sat in that chair on the 4th floor of an office building on Gay Street and understood for the first time the full shape of what I was looking at. Not a crime of opportunity, a construction project. She had looked at a 71-year-old man with a sick wife and seen a structure she could take over from the inside. My phone rang. Penny. Kurt put it on speaker. Her voice was controlled in the way of a woman who has been holding herself together through sheer will for several hours and is succeeding by the thinnest possible margin. She told me Marlene was fine, settled in the recliner, watching the evening news with the volume low the way she liked. Craig and his wife were still there. Then she went quiet for a moment. "Dad," she said softly, "while you were gone, Mom asked if she was going to be okay, and Wanda told her yes, and Mom smiled and said she felt better knowing she was being taken care of." None of us spoke for a moment. I thought about what those words had cost my daughter to repeat out loud. Penny had spent her adult life being the steady one in this family, covering for people she loved past any reasonable point, because that was what she believed family meant. She had spent 6 weeks sitting on everything Kurt had shown her, going to Sunday dinners, watching this woman hold her mother's hand, saying nothing. 6 weeks. "I'll be home soon," I told her. "I'm okay." After she hung up, Kurt asked me quietly, almost to himself, "What do you want to do, Edwin?" I thought about 2 directions. I could be fire. I could call my son right now and say every true thing that was sitting in my chest. I could be loud and immediate and satisfying for about 20 minutes and then spend the next 5 years watching it cost everyone around me more than it cost her. Or I could be something quieter, something that actually helped Marlene. I looked at Kurt. I thought about the facility on Lions View Pike that I had driven past 100 times and never allowed myself to look at directly. "I want every door closed before she knows one is open," I said. "Everything for Marlene first, everything else after." Kurt nodded once. He already had a plan. He had come to that Easter dinner with a plan. I have never been as grateful for a quiet man in my entire life. The next morning, I was on the phone at 8 a.m. with an elder law attorney named Harriet Bowman, whose office was on Market Street downtown. Kurt had already called ahead. She met me at 9 o'clock and went through those documents the way a thorough woman goes through bad paperwork, without flinching, without editorializing, seeing exactly what was there and exactly what needed to be removed. By 11 a.m., every power of attorney instrument my daughter-in-law held over my finances and Marlene's care had been formally revoked. Filed, processed, effective immediately. She lost all legal access before she sat down to her Monday lunch. She had no idea. Harriet then contacted my 401 administrator and initiated emergency beneficiary correction proceedings. The form I had signed on that tired Tuesday morning was reversed. Penny was restored. My daughter-in-law was removed. She still did not know. Day 2, Kurt's compliance department submitted a formal report to the Knox County Financial Crimes Unit. The case file he had built over 6 weeks was organized to a standard that the lead investigator told him she rarely saw from a private citizen. Kurt thanked her and said nothing else, which was entirely consistent with how Kurt operated. Day 3, she came to the house on Wednesday. She brought Marlene a lavender candle. She straightened the kitchen without being asked. She sat across from me with her coffee and told me I looked like I needed more rest. "You're probably right," I told her. "I've been trying to pay closer attention to things." She looked satisfied. She drove home and had no idea what was already moving in the space around her. Day 4, Penny came to the house with her spare key, the one I had given her when she moved out at 22 and never asked for back because she was my daughter and that house was hers as much as mine. She moved through her childhood home quietly and methodically and retrieved every original document Harriet needed. She told me later that she held herself together the entire time, completely focused, until she was back in her car in the driveway. Then she sat there for 15 minutes before she could drive. I did not ask her what those 15 minutes felt like. I already knew. Day 6, Harriet initiated Medicaid asset protection planning and identified pathways I had not known were available under documented fraud circumstances. She found a route to the facility on Lions View Pike, the one I had avoided looking at directly for 2 years. That made Marlene's care reachable even with the accounts depleted the way they had been. For the first time in 10 days, I exhaled all the way. Day 9, I called and asked everyone to come to Sunday dinner at the house. She arrived with an expensive bottle of red wine and a dish of brownies she had baked from scratch. Craig held the door open for her. They looked like people with nothing on their conscience, and one of them was right about that. Marlene was in her lavender blouse. "Good day. Clear eyes." "Laughing at something," Penny said in the kitchen. The kind of evening that could have passed for ordinary, if you did not know what was sitting beneath the surface of it, patient and inevitable. I had set the table. I had cooked the meal. I sat down and ate and listened to my son talk about a project at work and watched my wife hold a dinner conversation with the people she loved and felt. In that hour, something I cannot name cleanly. Not peace. Not its opposite. Just the specific weight of knowing something permanent is about to change and cannot be changed back. Midway through the main course, there was a knock at the front door. I stood up. I walked across the house I had lived in for 26 years and I opened the door. 2 investigators from the Knox County Financial Crimes Unit, plainclothes, calm, unhurried. I had spoken with them 2 days earlier. They knew exactly who they were there for. I stepped aside. I watched her face from across the dining room, and I want to tell you this part carefully because it matters. The first thing on her face was not guilt. It was not remorse. Her eyes moved fast. To me, to Kurt, to Penny, to the door. She was calculating. She was looking for the exit that was not there. Every door was closed. She had just tried the last one. Craig stood up so fast his chair scraped the hardwood. He looked at me. He looked at his wife. He looked back at me. I watched the understanding arrive in his face, and I watched it break something there that I knew was going to take a long time to put back together. That was the part that cost me the most. Not the money, my son's face, and the moment he understood what had been happening in his own marriage. Penny stood slowly. She had been carrying what she wanted to say for 9 days, turning it over, wearing down the edges. When the moment arrived, she found it simpler than anything she had prepared. She did not raise her voice. She did not cry. "Look at Mom before you leave this house." She said it directly and quietly. "Just look at her." The room went still. Marlene had been watching the movement near the door with the mild, benevolent curiosity she had in the evenings when her medication was balanced and the day had been kind. She understood that something was happening, but not what. She thought perhaps a guest was leaving early after a nice dinner. She lifted her right hand, the one with the tremor, and gave a small, cheerful wave. Oh, don't go yet, sweetheart, she said warmly. We haven't had the brownies. Penny let that sit in the room, let it breathe, let every person at that table feel the full, precise weight of what Marlene's disease had just done, which was protect the person who had stolen from her from ever having to watch her face change. Then my daughter spoke, quietly, to the woman being walked toward the door. She will probably always think well of you. Her mind is going to carry you through the rest of her life with your name clean in it. You will never have to sit across from her and watch her understand what you did to this family. A pause. One beat, but I understand it. Kurt understood it. Dad understood it. And I want you to know that every withdrawal you made while he was giving her medication at 5 in the morning, every paper you put in front of him when he was too exhausted to read it, every time you sat at this table and let him be grateful to you. I know all of it. Every piece. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure both of them are okay. Not because I have to. Because that is what it actually looks like when you love people. She was walked out of the front door of my house on a Sunday night, and Marlene waved cheerfully from her chair at the dinner table, believing completely that a dinner guest was simply heading home, after a lovely evening, the way guests do. She pleaded guilty. The case Kurt had built was too clean and too complete for any attorney to argue against. Structured withdrawals across 22 months totaling $243,000. Redirected pension distributions over 14 months. Fraudulent beneficiary designation change. The structuring charge alone, keeping every withdrawal beneath the federal reporting threshold deliberately, carried its own federal count, separate from the elder financial abuse. She was sentenced to 9 years. Restitution was ordered in full. Some of it comes back in monthly payments, slowly, in amounts smaller than what was taken. Some of it may not come back at all. I have made my peace with that, or I am making it. Some days that is the best a person can do. Marlene is at the care facility on Lions View Pike now, the one I had driven past for 2 years without looking at directly. The staff know her name and know that she likes her curtains open in the morning, and that she gets cold by 3 in the afternoon, and that she sometimes remembers things from 1984 with a clarity most people cannot manage for last week. She is cared for, she is safe, she is okay. Not the life we planned, but okay, and okay right now is everything. I still think about Kurt. He did not have to do what he did. A compliance report crossed his desk with my name on a pattern alert, and his name was not attached to it, and he could have filed it internally and moved on. Instead, he closed his office door and spent 6 weeks building a case, and then came to an Easter dinner with a note typed on his phone and pressed it into my knee under the table without looking at me, and waited. He owed me nothing. He had no obligation to me except the one he chose. I spent 41 years building a life around the belief that the people we love by blood are the ones who carry us. And one of those people used that love as a door she walked through while I was looking the other way. But the person who came and stood in the gap was a quiet man who works with numbers on the 4th floor of a building on Gay Street, who married my daughter 7 years ago and never asked for anything and never made a single promise he did not intend to keep. That is not something you get over. That is something you carry differently, redistributed, heavier on the side that holds it now, and you learn to walk with it. If you are a caregiver or if you love someone who is, please do not sign a power of attorney document when you are exhausted. Do not give any single person sole and unmonitored access to your accounts. Ask an elder law attorney about a durable POA that requires a co-trustee or a revocable living trust with dual authorization. These structures exist. They are not complicated. They are simply things nobody tells you about until after you need them. I learned it late. I am telling you now. That is the only thing left I can do with it.